Welcome back. Hope you're having a great day/night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. This is going to be all about my story because I've realized that I'm, 3 years into my content journey now. I've got a podcast. I've done 75 episodes. I've been making TikToks and Instagram content, and I've been doing TV appearances and radio stuff and all this stuff over the years. And I've never really talked about my come up story. So if you want to hear about that, if you're interested to know more and learn more about me and how I came to be, then this is a great episode for you. If you're like, I don't really care much about what this guy has to say, I don't really want to listen to him talk about himself for the next hour, then there you go. That's your warning. You can click off now and you can wait till the next episode. But for those of you who are interested to know more about me, I'm going to dive deep in this episode today, and it should be hopefully a pretty long one. I try to just segment stuff out and try to remember things from my past, which was easier said than done. It's actually really hard. It's a hard exercise to go back in time and think about all the stuff that's happened over, an extended period. And so I've jotted down the first maybe half of my journey, and it's got some dot points and stuff. And then the other half, I'm just going to wing it because it was honestly pretty hard. But yeah, this will be all about my story. And I've realized that a lot of the people that I listen to personally, like the podcasts I listen to and the people I follow on social media, the ones I really resonate with the most and the ones that I really click with are the ones that talk about their story. And they talk about it unapologetically. They don't just say it once and then never again. They keep telling their story again and again. And I've never told my story, period. I've been very vague about my story in business, but I haven't really talked about my story from the start. So that's what this is going to be about. And I guess we'll just get straight into it. So I'm going to take you all the way back to when I was 12 to 14. So I've always had a kind of a business mind. I've always wanted to do something for myself. I've always had an interest in it. And I've always had a bit of a knack for just creating things and making things work. So when I was 12, I used to play a little game called Minecraft, which you may have heard of. Maybe if you've got kids, your kids probably play it and you're like, wow, I'm listening to a guy that plays Minecraft and I'm giving up my time and energy for this. So I used to play Minecraft when I was about 12. And actually, I still do today. It's an embarrassing thing to admit, but yes. But when I was 12, I used to build Minecraft multiplayer servers. So what that meant is Minecraft is a single player and it's a multiplayer game. So you can play it by yourself in your own world, or you can play with other people. So I used to build these multiplayer networks, and I had all kinds of different people coming in. And one of the biggest servers I ever had, I had about 500 players playing on it at the same time, all together simultaneously. And I used to make a decent amount of money from that, especially as a 12, 13-year-old. So I would have people buying stuff in-game, they would donate and they would receive in-game items and ranks and rewards and all sorts of stuff. So people would pay for that privilege, and that money would just be pure profit. The running costs for me to keep a Minecraft multiplayer server up were not much at all. I think I paid $120 a month for a host. I occasionally would commission someone to code something for me, which didn't have much, but I didn't have any staff. I didn't have to delegate anything. I did it all myself. And so as a 12, 13-year-old, I was making, between a couple $100 and about $1,000 a week. It was really good. The only problem here was because I was under 18 and all the money was flowing through PayPal, because the buying merchant that we used, the selling merchant we used called Buycraft, which is where people would donate and pay for in-game items through, they would only pay me out to PayPal. And so I had to use my dad's PayPal account, which was a bit tricky because every now and then he would come into the lounge room and I would just be playing on my Xbox or something. And he'd be like, hey, I just got a payment for $3,500 from some guy. And it just says Assassin 3322. I'm like, oh, that's a guy that just bought a rank in the server. And then sometimes there would be chargebacks. And so my dad would have to deal with chargebacks. And yeah, it was a challenge. And I would have to obviously ask my dad for money if I ever wanted it. And he would have to buy stuff for me because it was his PayPal account. And I had the bright idea of, what if I just make my own PayPal account and just say I'm 18? So I did that. I made my own PayPal account and I said my name was Jason Benzema, that I was 29 years old when I was 13. And I was like, yes, this is great. All the money that's going to come through, I can just spend it freely, do whatever I want with it. And it was great. I was able to just buy stuff whenever. I as a as a 13-year-old, I was gambling money. I was like, there was another game I used to play, and you could like basically gamble in it, and I spent a lot of money on that. It was pretty silly, and so I would just buy. I was so trigger happy with the money I was making at that age, because who wouldn't be? Like, what 12-year-old has the sense to save their money and plan for the future? I don't know. Maybe some people do. Maybe that's my pitfall. But yeah, I was spending a lot of money at that age, but then I did this big launch of a new server. So I had all of these YouTubers who were basically like influencers. So if you think about TikTok, you've got cleaning influencers in the TikTok space. Cleaning product brands will pay those influencers to make videos about the product in order to sell more. I would do the same thing in Minecraft. I would have Minecraft YouTubers or Minecraft influencers play on my multiplayer server. They would make videos about it, and that would draw their audience into the server. And so they would play on it and obviously pay more money as well. They would start donating. They would buy more stuff because their favorite Minecraft YouTuber is playing on my server. And so it was this great loop of paying YouTubers to bring their audience into my server, and then their audience would pay for in-game stuff, and that would give me the money to pay more YouTubers and expand the server. And I grew a pretty big network. I had quite a substantial network at this point. And I had this new network that I was launching, and I did this massive launch campaign. I sunk thousands and thousands of dollars as a 13-year-old into this launch campaign. And it went really well. On launch day, we had the most new players on the server at any given time ever. We had the most amount of signups in one day ever, and I made a lot of money that day. Okay, so as a 13-year-old, I made about $40,000 to $50,000 overnight, and I was so excited. I remember running. It was like 10:30 at night because we kind of launched. Everything runs by American time with Minecraft and stuff. So we launched at American time, and yeah, I ran into the kitchen. Where was this? This was one of our houses in Bunbury that we used to live in. And I ran into the kitchen and I showed my mum and dad like the payment figures and stuff on the PayPal and on the Buycraft. And I was like, Mum, Dad, look at this. Look how much money. They couldn't believe it. Like I'd been doing this for about 2 years at that point, and they knew that I was making like little bits of money here and there. I was making like a couple $100 a week, which was great for a little 12-year-old. But then they saw me make like $40,000+ overnight. And they were like, wow, this is getting really serious. And so we had to like start to think about the future. Like, how is this going to work? Because I was now making, like a full-time income from this stuff. But long story short, because I had set up a PayPal account in bad faith, in bad practice, and I had lied about my age and my name and everything, what did PayPal do when they saw that some random person that just made a PayPal account had made 40 grand overnight? They froze the account and asked for verification of identity and business practices, because they were like, this guy's probably selling drugs or something. No, I was just selling dopamine to other little kids on the internet. But anyway, that was bad. I ended up losing all that money. I could not verify my identity. There was a massive dispute with PayPal. I could not get that money. And yeah, so I lost all that. And look, it's a lot of money to lose all at once. But the worst part was, it stalled my progress, because I'd paid all these YouTubers to do this launch for me, and I was out of pocket a fair bit. And so that was a good amount of profit, and that was from one day, and that was supposed to kind of continue the momentum forward and push me forward and grow the network. But it just kind of stalled everything then, and things kind of faded away, and I never really achieved that same level of success with my Minecraft servers again, because Minecraft is like very, very trendy. It's like one thing's hot one month, and then the next month it's something completely different. That's why I was always doing these different launches and different servers. Each server was like a different game type. So like, you would have like a faction server where people can team up and they can fight against each other. And then you have like mini game servers where there's like lots of little mini games that people can play with each other. Like all these different kinds of trends. I ended up just kind of falling behind the trends, and I could no longer really have that success again. I still kept doing it up until I was around 14, 15. I still had a server, but I was definitely losing interest. I was making, maybe $200-300 a month at this point. So I'd really had a big fall from grace from making up to a couple $1,000 a month in the earlier days of this stuff. And so I started to lose interest. I was kind of burnt out with it, because I would spend like 15 hours a day doing this stuff, particularly on weekends when I wasn't in school. But overall, it was a very enjoyable experience, especially for my 12-year-old self. Like, I had a lot of fun doing it. It gave me a lot of experience in managing money, and a better way to put it would be mismanaging money. And just the way that things are structured, the way you build teams, because I had a lot of volunteers helping me out with the server, the way things kind of work together, the way you have to set one thing up to make another thing work, all this stuff, I was starting to learn from a very young age. I had no idea that these sort of principles and these experiences and learnings would help me later on in life with something like a cleaning business. But it gave me a lot of confidence in myself, and I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to create stuff. I knew that I wanted to pave my own path and really make my own way. And so that was my first experience with really making money online. And then after that, I moved on to the next thing. So I was always a loner in school. I never had friends. And when I say like I never had friends, I don't mean like, oh, I had a couple of friends. I wasn't that popular. Like, I had no friends. No one talked to me. And if they did, it was so they could bully me. But I'm not going to like play victim here. I was a really annoying kid. Like, I was just, I don't know how to put it. I was just different. I was annoying. I would always act up in class. I would always talk. I would always just try to make people like me. But in doing so, no one liked me. So I had no friends. I had all this free time. Every time school would end, I would go home. I was playing soccer at the time, but like nothing crazy. And so I would have a lot of free time. And I just loved computers at the time. So I became basically a self-taught programmer. I studied HTML and CSS, which if you don't know what that is, HTML, hypertext markup language, that is what's used to build websites. And so I learned how to build websites from like the age of 9. My dad got me a book called Creating Websites Simplified. That was my first introduction to coding, and I loved it. I followed the whole book and copied the steps, and I built my first website. And then I learned CSS, which is how you can style websites. That's the code that's used to kind of bring the website to life and breathe life into it with color, with different like headings and images and all sorts of stuff. And so I learned those two things. And by the age of 13, 14, when I was transitioning out of my journey with Minecraft server building, I started building websites. And I mainly did this for my dad because my dad was an optometrist, and he kind of had like his own side hustles he would sell like kids' eyeglasses online and stuff. And so I built a few websites for him, and I built some websites for like family, friends and stuff. It was a really hard sell, like not going to lie. My parents would have to do it for me. They'd have to be like, yeah, our like 13-year-old kid, yeah, he can build you a website that's better than anything you've been offered. Like, oh, that website developer that quoted you like 10 grand for a website, forget him. Our son can do it for like $200. So people were like kind of apprehensive at first, but I built a couple websites as a kid. It was great. And I just loved to code. I think there's a few YouTube videos out there from like 13 years ago where I made like coding tutorials. I found them kind of resurfaced recently, and I posted one on my Instagram story, and that was funny. And so I did that. And yeah, like fast forward to today, that's why I'm pretty good at building websites, because I've technically been doing it for like 15 years at this point. But yeah, I did that for a while. I built mainly just websites for my dad and for friends and family, because I didn't know how to market myself in a professional sense. Like moving from marketing a Minecraft server to then going into a real business, like providing a service or a product, very, very big difference. It's like stepping out of literally a game into the real world. And so I had real world experiences that kind of knocked me back, and I was like, this is going to be difficult, or more difficult than I expected. But I kept doing that. I would just make mock websites. I would create a lot of fake websites, like websites for brands that didn't even exist. Or if I saw a business that didn't have a website, I would just make a website, and I would like envision how that would look if they had one. And I would just do this in my spare time because I enjoyed it. And that was kind of what I was doing on the side while I was playing soccer. I would try to sell websites every now and then. I didn't have a lot of success with it. I maybe sold like 4 websites in the 2 years I was doing it, because I just, like I said, I did not know how to market myself. I was great at building websites, but I was not great at selling the vision to someone, especially as a kid that was socially awkward and did not want to talk to anyone. So I had my parents as kind of my mouthpiece. They would speak to people for me. And yeah, I didn't have a lot of success, but that was a lot of fun. And I was doing that on the side while playing soccer. And that was around the time when I was really starting to ramp up with soccer. Like, I had always been playing at the highest level from a young age, but by the time I was 14, that's when I started playing in the Perth Glory Youth Squad. So if you're not from Australia, or you just don't follow like soccer in general here, We have our professional soccer league, which is called the A-League. So the Western Australian team is called Perth Glory, and I was in the youth squad for Perth Glory. So I was the goalkeeper for Perth Glory under 13 and under 14. So I was playing for two teams at the time. We were living in Bunbury back then, so that's 2 hours south of Perth, and my parents were taking me to Perth 5 days a week for training and to play. I was the number one rated goalkeeper in the country for my age bracket. I was being trained by a former Australian goalkeeper. I was being trained by Neil Young, who was the former Perth Glory goalkeeper and the current, at the time, Perth Glory goalkeeper coach. So I was playing at a really high level from a really young age. I was getting the highest level of training possible, and I was even representing Australia overseas. I played in the Singer Cup that was my first international appearance. When I was 13, I played in the Singer Cup. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, I was playing for the state team. I was traveling a lot. I was playing all sorts of places. I was competing in, and I was doing that. Like that was pretty much a full-time thing for me at that age. I was training, 5 days a week and then playing 1 day a week on a Sunday. And I didn't really have time for much else, which was great for me because I had no social life. I never went out. I never did anything with other kids. And I felt that way with my teammates as well. Like I struggled to make friends in school, and I felt like I was an outcast. And I felt even more like that with my soccer teams that I was in. So even at Perth Glory, even with the state side, even when I went overseas and played, like I just felt like a complete outcast. And, there's only so many times that can happen where you have to start thinking like, it's got to be something to do with me. Like I'm bringing this upon myself. There's no way that all these different groups of kids across different places in different settings all just don't like me. So like I obviously had some issues back then just socially, and I couldn't put a pin on it because I was a kid. But looking back on it now, it's like I just tried so hard to make people like me to the point where they didn't like me at all. And I struggled with that for a long time, even into my earlier adult years. I'm 24 now, but from 18 to 22, I just felt like I was trying to be someone that I wasn't. Like for those years, I just tried to hype myself up more than what I really was. I tried to have like this grandiose sense of self, and that's the perception that I wanted other people to have of me, so they'd like me and want to know me and want to be friends with me. And it just kept getting worse and worse. Like the more I was doing and the more opportunity and access I had, that problem just got worse. In school, you're kind of confined because you can only say so much to someone, and you can only brag about so much, and you can only take things so far before you just can't do it anymore. And so in school, I was just trying so hard to make people like me, but it was completely fake, and it backfired on me, and it was even worse than if I hadn't done it at all, because then people just didn't like me for it. But anyway, I struggled with friends in school, and then that happened in soccer, and my heart was never really in it when I was playing soccer. I had this thing where, like, even in school, like in my earlier school years in primary school, teachers and my family, everyone was telling me that like I was gifted. They were telling me I was smart, but I wasn't doing well in school. I was struggling with my grades, and everyone around me was like, "Oh, he's just not applying himself. Oh, he's just disengaged and bored and uninterested, and that's why he's not doing well." But I kept trying to tell people like, "No, I am just falling behind." And like that was the hardest thing to get out. I didn't even want to say that to my parents because I felt embarrassed. They were telling people at school and like friends and family that I was gifted and I was smart and all this stuff. And I felt so embarrassed to tell people that I was actually struggling. Like I remember this one time, there's this thing called GATE, which is Gifted and Talented Education, I think it stands for. They got me to leave school one day and sit this exam. It was like a 4-hour exam to get into the Gifted and Talented program at a very prestigious school. And so I went there and I applied myself. Like I tried to answer the questions. I was finding it very difficult. Like I was struggling with these questions. And then I remember like a couple months later, I asked my parents, I was like, whatever happened with that GATE exam? And they told me like I failed it really, really badly. Like my score was really, really bad. And again, they were just like, "Oh, were you just like not interested, or were you just not, you didn't want to go there, or you didn't like the kids there?" I was like, no. Like I didn't have the heart to tell them that I just struggled with it. And so I had that in school where people were telling me I wasn't applying myself, and they were just making excuses for me, saying that I wasn't interested or I was disengaged, and that's why I wasn't doing well. And the same thing happened with soccer. Like everyone was telling me that I was the best in the country, that I was that I was going to go places, that I was really, really good and all this stuff. I never felt that way about myself. I always had this inferiority complex. I never believed in myself. I really didn't. The only thing I ever believed in myself for was with my business building stuff, like with Minecraft and all this stuff. But so it happened in school, it happened with soccer, and eventually with soccer as well. I just became completely, I lost my passion for it. I had a passion at a young age. It was fun to play, but then things got too serious. I was training 5 days a week, playing a 6th day. We had like a dietitian, we had a physio, we had all this stuff. I just didn't enjoy it anymore. And it felt like a chore to wake up every day and train. Like, there was one year where I was not only playing for Perth Glory, but I was also in like this high, like elite level sporting program. It was like a government thing. And they would have us training like at like 5:30 in the morning till 6:30. And then we'll go to school, and then we'd get home, and then we do our training for like Perth Glory. So I'd be training like 10 times a week sometimes. I just got so burnt out, and I was like, I'm so sick of this. I don't want to do it anymore. But I always had this inability to speak up for myself. And so I never really told my parents that. I just started to act up more. I just started to like cause problems at home. I was like very disgruntled when I would talk to my mum and dad. I would like sleep in if I had like training and stuff, and I would just say that I was sick and didn't want to go. And eventually they kind of just were like, well, you obviously don't want to be doing this, so I'm not going to force you to do it. And I was like, all right, cool. And yeah, around the time I was like 18, that's when I stopped playing. But I'll backtrack a little bit because there is a lot of stuff from like 14 to 18 to unpack. So 14, 15, that's around the time I was playing for Perth Glory. That was like my peak of my kind of soccer journey at that point. I was like #1 rated goalkeeper in the country. I was flying all around the country doing stuff and playing games and going to training camps, and I represented Australia overseas and all this stuff. But I was really starting to struggle in school. Like, I was really having issues with other kids. I was getting bullied a lot. And again, like, I'm not trying to play victim here. I brought a lot of that on myself. I was a really annoying kid, and it just wasn't good. And so I was really struggling with school. I really hated it. And like I said, I just didn't want to speak up for myself. I didn't want to voice these things that were happening. And so again, I just started acting up at home. I would sleep in. I would act like I'm sick. And then if my parents tried to force me to go to school, I would like fight back, and I'd be like, no, I don't want to go. I'd like scream and like all that stuff, kick and scream. And yeah, I made it really hard for my parents, definitely. They probably regretted having not only me, but 2 other kids at that point. I was definitely a hard child to handle, but props to my parents. They've always been amazing. And I don't know how, like, if I was in their position, I don't know how I would have dealt with a kid like me. And so, yeah, school was not great, especially in high school. High school kind of just amplified all of my problems, because that's the time where people are starting to become themselves. They're starting to discover who they are. Friends and like social circles are even more important, because you're at that age where everything is about your social life then. And so I didn't have that. Again, I didn't have friends. To this day, I do not have one single friend from school that I just like keep in touch with today, hang out with. And it's weird. Like, everyone around me, like, I've got friends now. Everyone around me, they have like their different circles of friends. Like, I'm in a church, so I've got a group of friends from church. I've got a group of friends that I met through business. I've got a group of friends that I met through like the supercar scene, like people that own supercars. But every friend I have in any circle, they've all got that one circle where they've got their like day one people that they met in school and they grew up together. Everyone has that. I never did. Okay. It was always like a weird thing. And it was also hard for me to make friendships later on, because I was like, how do I know someone really likes me? How do I know they're not just sticking around for like access and for like, because I'm like doing stuff and all this, because they didn't grow up with me and we didn't like, start together. We didn't, all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, I was struggling with school, and I'd also been grade skipped. So I forgot to mention that I'd been grade skipped when I was like 9 years old, again, because people thought I was like gifted and I was doing really well in primary school. Like, I definitely was excelling for a 9-year-old. I was definitely doing better than the average 9-year-old. And so they put me up. I did 3 terms of year 3. And then in the 4th term, they put me up to year 4. And I did 1 term of year 4 and then went to year 5 the next year. So I did 2 years in 1 year. And that also amplified my social problems, because I got bullied even more for being like 3 years younger than everyone. And I fell behind in school because I'd missed like a whole year of learning. And so it created like this knock-on effect of like that year that I skipped, it really hindered my ability to do well after that. And so by the time I got to high school, I was really struggling with work, and I was like failing exams. I was getting like C's and D's, and I was getting the same thing. Like family and people at the school were just saying I wasn't applying myself and all this stuff. And I was acting out more in school and at home. And eventually I got into like so many fights at school, and I'd gone to detention and been suspended so many times that there was this one event where it was such a small thing, but it kind of blew up into a bigger thing. And then the school I was going to at the time, they just said, all right, enough is enough. And they basically kicked me out of school at 14. So I did one term of year 9, and I had been essentially kicked out of school. And my parents weren't happy with the way the school was treating me. So I think it was like a mutual thing where they just pulled me out, and the school also didn't want me to come back. So like, yeah, my parents really didn't like how I was being treated there. And so yeah, I was 14. I'd left school. I'd only done one term of year 9. I'd skipped like a whole year of learning. And so very, very undereducated. I wouldn't say uneducated, but very undereducated at this point. And so, yeah, because I'd had such a bad experience with teachers and school management and principals and stuff, my parents had kind of lost faith in the traditional school system. And so they were going to homeschool me. They were like, okay, it's just not working the way it is at school, and we're just going to put you on your own pace and we'll homeschool you. And so my dad at the time, he's an optometrist. So he was working at like Adjust Spectacles, if you know what that is. Or he was basically like a Specsavers, except he'd never worked there because he hates Specsavers. So he was an optometrist at one of these places, and he had this colleague at the Just Spectacles he worked at. And my dad decided to start a business, so start his own optometry practice with this guy that he used to work with, so that he could have the time freedom and the flexibility to be able to homeschool me while also making a decent income to support the family while my mum was also working. So my dad started a business with that person he used to work with at Just Spectacles, and the plan and the goal was to be able to homeschool me. So build the business up and homeschool me, and then have the time freedom to be able to really pursue my schooling. And so long story short though, my dad's business partner ran off with hundreds of thousands of dollars, tanked the business, and left my dad with all the debt. Now, my dad's, they had also sheltered me from all of this when I was 14. I didn't know about any of this until a few years later. But my dad's accountant had gone to him and said, hey, there's a really easy way out of this. You can just declare bankruptcy, start fresh. And it's like, it didn't really happen. You might lose a bit, but you're not going to lose what you're currently being faced with, which was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But my dad, he's a man of integrity. He's a very honest, hardworking. He's like a saint almost. Like no one is without sin, but he is pretty close to it. And so my dad was like, he's got too much integrity. He's like, no, I want to make sure all these debtors get paid back, even if he wasn't the person that was the reason that the business got into debt. But he was like, I'm going to make sure these people get paid back. And so he didn't declare bankruptcy. He made it his goal to pay back every single last creditor. Was it creditors, right? Debtors or creditors? I don't know. Anyway, creditors, I think. And yeah, it meant that our whole world changed. Like we'd gone from middle to upper middle class family, maybe just like somewhere in the middle. Like we were doing fine. Like we weren't struggling. We weren't doing incredibly well either, but we were doing okay. To then like we had to move into my grandparents' investment unit, and it's like a 2x1 unit. Not big enough for me, my mum, my dad, my 2 sisters. So I had to move in with my grandparents into their house, and the rest of my family moved into this unit because I just couldn't fit. So our whole world changed. We started to really struggle financially. My dad, like he told me like in recent years that, and he obviously wouldn't have told me this back then because I was a kid and it would be a lot to handle, but he honestly didn't know how he was going to put food on the table back then. So it was a really tough time. And yeah, I can't imagine what my dad went through with that. Like, and my mum as well, because they're together. They've always been together. But like, wow, I think about it now. I'm like, I don't know what I would have done. I think that is the biggest measure of a business owner's, not only their work ethic, but their determination, their drive, their problem solving ability, and just their heart, where their heart really lies. And my dad navigated that so well. I mean, he kept the family together with my mum as well, of course, but I'm just talking about my dad because it was his business. But my parents kept the family together. They continued to provide for my sisters and myself. They put food on the table, and they still did everything in their ability to uplift me and my sisters and try to give me as much opportunity as I could. And so, yeah, that kind of overshadowed everything in our lives for the next couple of years, because my dad, I barely saw him for like 3 or 4 years. He just had to work like 100 hours a week doing, there's this thing called visiting optometrist scheme from the government, where the government pays him to go out to like remote communities, and he would go out to like remote indigenous communities in the middle of nowhere, like literal villages with no electricity, and the huts are made out of like mud and stuff. Like he would go all the way out to these places and get paid by the government to like test people's eyes. And he would do that all around the country. And so I never saw him, and he had to do that because he had to pay down this debt. His business partner ran off and like screwed a lot of people over. And my dad is just too honest and hardworking and too full of integrity to just let that happen. So he worked a lot. He worked a lot to bring a lot of money in so he could pay off that debt while also provide for the family. And yeah, I didn't see him much in those years. And so my schooling was kind of overshadowed. It's not like I dropped out of school at 14 and people didn't try to get me back in. Like the plan was to homeschool me. And then that happened, and we kind of all just forgot about it because that was the least of everyone's concerns. Like our family was pretty destitute at that point. And yeah, like it's fine to talk about now because we're good now. But yeah, that was a rough, like, probably 6 years, I would say. Probably, yeah, 5 or 6 years. Very rough. I barely saw my dad, and I really felt for my sisters because my sisters were young. My sisters are 9 years younger than me. And they barely got to see my dad in some of their earlier years, which sucked. And they always used to ask my mum, like, when are we going to see dad next? And she wouldn't even know because he would just be working so much to cover the loans that were outstanding, like all the debts and stuff from the previous business. And yeah, like just imagine you lost like $1 million. Imagine you'd worked your whole life and you had gotten to this point, and imagine just losing it all. And then working for the next like 10 years, working yourself like a dog nonstop just to get yourself back to square one. Can you imagine the mental anguish you would be facing? Like just imagine how hard that would feel just to wake up every day with that on your conscience, with that burden on your back to carry. But knowing that you can't give up. Giving up is not an option. You've got a family to provide for. You've still got your life to live. You can't just give up there. And so I can't imagine what my parents had to go through to navigate that, but they did it. And all while still, providing me with shelter, providing me with food on the table, and giving me as much opportunity as they could. Now, I was still a very bratty teenager. I didn't really want to help myself much at that point. I just wasn't a great kid. And so, yeah, I was out of school for 4 years. That whole ordeal with my dad's business, that kind of overshadowed everything. So school wasn't really a priority. The family was just trying to navigate through that crisis at that point. And also, side note, I've got a very small family. So my dad's parents both passed away when he was very young. He was like 9 and 12, I think, when they each had passed away. And so, and none of his family took him in. So he ended up being a foster kid. He bounced around a few foster homes. And so I don't know anyone from my dad's side of the family. I only have one set of grandparents on my mum's side. I've got my mum, my dad, my sisters, and an uncle and 3 cousins. That is our entire extended family. Very, very small family. And so we always remained pretty tight-knit. And yeah, but anyway, so because that whole business bankruptcy and everything that followed had kind of overshadowed my schooling, it's like we just blinked and I was 18, okay? So like between the age of 14 and 18, I just didn't really do anything. I was at home. Like I didn't play soccer much anymore because I was slowly losing interest. So I'd gone from like 6 days a week of playing to like 3 or 4 and then slowly to nothing. And during that time, I tried launching a bunch of different businesses. I wrote down a list of some of the stuff I tried here. I had a business called Drop Associate, which is where it was like a reselling business. I had this, it was like, I don't know what to compare it to, but it was like I would, with streetwear and like rare fashion and stuff like that, there was a big resale market, and I would like post updates about new drops and like new clothing lines that were coming out and how to get them and what the prices were going to be. And then in addition to that, I had a business called Cop Line, COP Line, like not cop like police, but cop like get something. So I had a little I wrote a piece of software. I called it Copline, and it was this bot that would buy limited quantity drops of like shoes and clothes and stuff. And so I would like accumulate this stuff and then I would sell it for a profit because it was a limited quantity. They would sell like, I don't know, 10,000 pairs of shoes. If you could even just get 10 pairs and resell them for a couple $100 each, that's pretty good money. All right. So I had that, but it was a hustle. I didn't make much money with that. And then I moved on to drop shipping. Drop shipping was a big fad back in 2017, 18, 19, that was a big thing back then. And so I tried a bunch of different drop shipping stores. I had this drop shipping store called Clipaw. So it's CLIPPAW. It was this electronic dog nail grooming device. It was actually pretty cool. And I did all right with that. That was my first e-commerce store that did well. Like I made like, when I say well, I made like 15 grand in like a year and a half. I think the profit on that was maybe like, I don't know, 7,000 or something. And yeah, but I made money and it gave me more confidence in my ability to sell stuff and make money for myself. And I had like a women's fashion label called Bella Moren. And the name I got was like my dog's name was Bella, and the street I grew up on was called Merrin's Terrace. So that's how I came up with that women's fashion label name. Spoiler alert, that made no money. Go figure, 16-year-old guy knows nothing about women's fashion, so why did I ever think that was going to do anything? I had a dropshipping store called Mobile Cinema. It was like that was actually one of my favorite things. It was like this magnifying thing. So like, think about the size of an iPad. Okay, it was like this clear case that you would put your phone into, and it would magnify your phone screen to be as big as like an iPad or a small laptop. Really cool device, actually. And I sold none. I spent a lot of money trying to advertise the thing. It did not go well. And then I moved on to my next one, which was called Doomsday Survival Kit. Another terrible idea that I cringe to even think about. It was like this all-in-one survival kit for like, if the apocalypse happens tomorrow, this is the only kit you'll need to survive and ward off zombies and all this stuff. And I was trying to appeal to like the prepper market. I think I watched one episode of Doomsday Preppers and I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I should be doing. And then I had another store called Ultimate Survival Watch. This was like a 15-in-1 watch. It had like a paracord in it. It had this thing that you could use to start a fire. It had a whistle. It had like a 3-meter long paracord, which was the watch band that you could unravel. It had a compass on it. All this cool stuff. It was actually a really cool watch. I sold a couple of them. Didn't really do well. And then I was like 17 and I tried to get into digital marketing. So I had a restaurant marketing business called Upturn Restaurant Solutions, which then became Upturn Marketing Solutions. And then I started another business called Direct Results, where I was making like websites and doing ads for people. Didn't make any money with any of this stuff, but I actually do still have Direct Results today, and I do make money now. So, but just to paint a picture, like I tried so many different things. I tried probably like 30 different online businesses and side hustles and ventures and never really had any success. So the cleaning business I have today, it was not my first rodeo. Like it was not my first. It was my first big success, but it was not my first business. I'll put it that way. And so, yeah, I tried all these different businesses. That was just to name a few. I tried all this different stuff. And then I was 18, and my grandparents, who I was living with at the time, they were like, you got to get a job. All right. So, and there I am. I'm in this position where I'm 18 with no education, no past job history, no more professional sporting prospects, and bad social anxiety. Not a good concoction of things to have when you're trying to go into the job force. And so, yeah, my grandparents were pressuring me to get a job. So I applied to over 100 jobs throughout Bunbury, which is still where I was living at the time. And I got 2 interviews. So I got an interview with, Flight Centre, that travel agency thing. Man, it was like a really rude awakening. Like it was like going into an ice bath, hopping on that interview. They were asking me questions that I'd never been asked in my life. Like I had no preparation for this thing. They were asking me things like, what's a country you went to where you really liked the culture, and how did you integrate yourself with that culture while you were there, and then how would you? I was like, what? I'm like 18. I've barely been overseas. How am I supposed to answer this stuff? Like, can you just give me a job and I'll work hard and you pay me and I make you money? Like, what are these questions? Like this is Flight Centre. When I'm not applying for like the Secret Service or anything. And so, yeah, that interview went terribly. They didn't even email me back to let me know I hadn't made it through. So, and then I handed my resume into a sports shop that was local to me, and they put on the Facebook ad, like, you have to hand your resume in person. which is probably just so they can like see the people in person. Pretty smart, actually. That's what I would do if I had a retail store. And so I went in there, handed in my resume, and I was about to walk right back out, and the manager stops me. She's like, all right, can you do an interview right now? Do you have time? And I was like, yeah, sure. My grandfather was out in the car park just waiting because I didn't have my license at the time. He would drive me around for all this stuff to apply to jobs. And yeah, like I was just so anxious and paranoid, and I had so much social anxiety that like even the flight center interview, which I had like days to prepare for, that went terribly. But then being put on the spot face to face with someone, like also the flight center interview was over the phone. So now I was being put on the spot by someone in person, face to face, no warning, to give an interview. That went so badly. I think it was such a traumatic experience that I have now blocked it from my memory forever. I don't remember anything besides that it was terrible. And yeah, they never contacted me again either. And like, yeah, it was bad. Like I just over answered every question. They were like, how would you help a customer if they walked into a store? And I just gave like the most long-winded, like nonsensical answer ever. It was like trying to meet the word count on an essay for school. It was like so bad. And so, yeah, I applied to over 100 different places. I got 2 interviews. They went terribly. And yeah, I was like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do at this point. No one wants to hire me. I've got no skills. I don't want to go back to school at this point because I'm like 4 years behind. So I need to make something for myself. And all this time I was going to this business mastermind group in Perth like once a month with my dad, because my dad, he was trying to do the same thing. He was trying to, he didn't want to just start from scratch. He wanted to leapfrog years ahead of where he was before, because if you get to that age, if you're like 45 to 50, you're like, and you've already had a massive loss, you don't just want to start from scratch. You need to play catch up. And so he was going to like business events and stuff, just trying to accelerate his growth. And so he would bring me along to them because I wasn't doing anything at the time. I wasn't in school. I wasn't really playing soccer at that point either. And yeah, he took me to this business mastermind group in Perth that was run by a guy called Mal Emery. And we would just meet up. He would do these slideshows, and he would talk about his business experience and tips and tactics he had. And like Mal Emery is a legend. If you don't know who he is, he's spoken on stage with Donald Trump, Robert Kiyosaki, Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, and like a lot of other people. He's built, bought, and sold like over 45 companies, and he's one of the like founding fathers of OG direct response marketing, especially in Australia. And he's actually dubbed Australia's millionaire maker, which is interesting because he made me a millionaire in a way as well. But yeah, I got the idea to start a service business during one of those business mastermind sessions, because he talked about how you had to go into a business with a starving crowd. He talked about, going to the beach, selling cold water or selling ice cream. He talked about how you need a starving crowd, and also a business with recurring revenue. Okay. So like starving crowd, recurring revenue. My mind just started to go to like home service, because everyone's got a home. Every home needs to be cleaned, and it's got recurring revenue. It's a great model. And it suited me personally because, again, like I've got social anxiety. I don't want to be talking to people face to face and interacting with and doing customer service and all that stuff, because I just can't do it. Like I hate it. Like I can, but I can't. I hate it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to kiss up to people. I don't want to, if someone complains, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm so sorry you had that experience. Let me no, just get out of here. Go away. Leave me alone. And so, yeah, I tossed up between house cleaning, lawn mowing, and car detailing. This is all around the age of 17. And I ended up going with house cleaning for a few reasons, like lawn mowing, high startup costs. I don't want to be out there in the elements during the hot summers and the cold winters and the rain. And car detailing, I felt like it was a much higher knowledge barrier. Like you really needed to know a lot about cars and stuff to really do it. And so, yeah, I ended up going with house cleaning. My grandparents, they tried to talk me out of it and said it would never work. And they told me to just keep looking for a job. And I appeased them. I was like, okay, I will keep applying to places and looking for a job while I'm also trying to clean. But yeah, because of who I was and how I was, I still could not get a job. And so I had the idea to start the cleaning business when I was 17, and I kind of just sat on the idea for 6 months. I procrastinated terribly over this, and that was my one biggest regret. When people ask me what my biggest regret was, it was that I didn't just start sooner. That's it. And so I started by just cleaning my grandparents' house while I was living with them. They were like, instead of paying us board, how about you just clean the house once a week? So that was a way that I could help out my grandparents and also gain experience and skills and knowledge with the cleaning stuff. And so I think like a lot of people did when they started cleaning business, I looked for guidance. I looked for a mentor. And who did I find on YouTube? Angela Brown, the house cleaning guru. I must have listened and watched like hundreds and hundreds of her videos and podcasts, and it really helped me like with the foundational stuff of just how to clean, like where to start, what to do, what kind of products to use, how a clean actually looks and feels, because I'd never cleaned a house at this point. I'd never employed a cleaner, so I had no frame of reference for anything. And yeah, so I watched a lot of her videos, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and for like 6 months before I had a driver's license, I was just cleaning my parents' and my grandparents' house, and yeah, just like getting experience doing it and just feeling comfortable cleaning a house. And I quickly realized like I loved doing it. Like it was actually a lot of fun. I loved cleaning bathrooms. I loved cleaning kitchens. And I was like, hang on, I really do like this. The only time I'd really felt that kind of joy for something was when I was doing my Minecraft server stuff. Like how crazy is that I loved cleaning as much as I loved making money playing video games. Like that's two opposite ends of the spectrum, but I love them equally. And so yeah, I was doing that for 6 months, just like slowly doing it, like just cleaning my grandparents' house while also creating the concept, creating like the brand idea and the identity. And it's funny how much it changed over the years. Like I showed people my first concept for the brand. It was going to be Jason Home Cleaning. And then it was going to be called Clean Freak. And then it was going to be called Prestige. And then it was going to be called Puriclean. And then it was going to be called Peliclean because my favorite animals are pelican. I was like, oh, that's smart. And then thank God I eventually just settled for Enhanced Home Cleaning. But yeah, in the meantime, I still didn't have a driver's license. And so I was just holding off on the business idea. I was like, I couldn't do it until I had a license. So I was building up my logbook hours. I was like driving my dad out into these remote country towns because he was still doing his visiting optometrist scheme thing. So I would drive him for like 6 hours straight and then 6 hours back. And so I filled up my logbook with all the hours as a learner driver. And then I sat my exam and did my practical assessment and I failed it. Most people fail on the first time. So yeah, I kind of knew that. And I was like, okay. And so I did my second one like a few weeks later, passed it, got my P plates, and I was like, yes, let's get to work. Let's build a cleaning business. And then guess what happened? There was a global pandemic called COVID-19. Okay, not the best time to start a house cleaning business. COVID had just hit. I was trying to advertise by handing out hundreds of flyers during a time where people were too scared to even touch their own mail because they thought they were going to get coronavirus from touching their mail. It was insane. I tried free clean offers. They didn't work because, I don't know, people just thought that it was too good to be true or something. I tried over 30 different marketing angles. I got a whole binder full of different ads that I've ran, and I might actually do like a TikTok on this and show how bad all of my old ads were. Like, no wonder I was getting no business from them. They were bad. I even tried a COVID cleaning marketing angle, and that backfired massively. And I ended up getting contacted by police because I got posted in a crime watch group, and people thought I was using this marketing angle as a way to get people out of their house so I could rob it. If you haven't seen my TikTok video on that, I posted a video like probably a year ago where I talked about that experience, and I provided like screenshots of the post in the crime watch group and all the comments and the commentary from what people were saying about it. That was a really interesting time. And so yeah, I was like, this was probably 3 months into the actual launch of the business. I had made no money. I had not gotten a single customer, and coronavirus was in full swing back when we were calling it that. I don't even remember why we changed the name from coronavirus. I don't know. Anyway, I had, I was doing what everyone kind of does. I started out just charging by the hour and doing whatever the customer wants, and I was just struggling to get anything done. And I was also doing like this stupid thing called an enhanced biodynamic air quality analysis, because I found this like air quality monitor on what was it, AliExpress, that like measures formaldehyde and like all the different things like particulate matter in a room and can tell you the air quality of that room. And I thought, oh, this is cool. No other cleaners are doing this. Yeah, no other cleaners are doing that, because who cares? Like, what are you going to do with that information? I quickly realized that nobody knew what it was or cared for it as well. And my only answer to a potential air quality issue was, oh, maybe you should just open a window. Like, I didn't think that through. Like, what if I do go into a house and the air quality is bad? Oh, well, open a window then. Like, oh, gee, thanks, man. Thanks for that enhanced biodynamic air quality analysis. So eventually, I got rid of that in the end. But I finally got my first client. This was after 3 months of me like genuinely trying to market this thing like 30, 40 hours a week and handing out flyers and also trying to apply for jobs and doing all that stuff. And I finally got my first client. It was someone who responded to a flyer offer for a $27 house clean. So I did it. It took me 4.5 hours. I made like $6 an hour that day, but I was the happiest guy on earth to be making $6 an hour that day. I was over the moon to just get my first client in a real business where I was dealing with people face to face and I was providing a real service. And I asked her what she thought of the ad, and she confirmed my suspicions and said that other residents in the community had posted it in their like big community group chat, thinking that it was a scam because it was just too good to be true. So that was great feedback to hear, and I gained the confidence to move forward. And after that, I switched my marketing approach to Facebook and had way more success. I finally got my first $1,000 week, and then I ran a free cleaning competition. That exploded my business. I closed $100,000 worth of business in a 7-day span from that competition. So I'd set it up in ClickFunnels. If you know what ClickFunnels is, it's like a website builder. I set up the competition funnel there. People would enter. I would grab their details, and then I would email them and text them with offers like, hey, you entered our free cleaning competition. You answered that you've been thinking about getting a house cleaner before, or you've had a house cleaner in the past. Would you be open to getting a free quote? That went bananas. I got $100,000 worth of business in like a week. And so, yeah, I'm going to quickly like, and also just want to add, like, the key here is that despite not being able to start the business for 6 months, despite all the setbacks I had before that, and despite what happened with COVID and how I couldn't get a client for 3 months, and I was spending money on flyers and advertising nonstop and getting nowhere and wasting all this time, money, and energy, I never doubted myself. Not once did I think about giving up. I was like, I'm just going to do this until I get it right. I'm not giving up on this. I did not doubt my ability whatsoever. I knew that I would make it work. It was just a matter of when, not if. I just had to try different approaches and spend enough time doing it and gain the skills and the experience necessary to get good at it. Because everyone sucks in the beginning. You have to get good at sucking, and then you can get good. That was a weird statement. I wish I could take that back, but we're just going to roll with it. Yeah, get good at sucking. God, what am I doing? Anyway, so once I'd launched that free cleaning competition, I was kind of off to the races. I was really busy. I was cleaning a lot. I was doing like 50, 60 hours of cleaning a week, making really great money for an 18-year-old. Like I was making like $75K a year at this point, which was my goal when I started. I just wanted to make $75K. And that was like pure profit after all expenses and stuff. And so yeah, that was great. And just like from the 2020 to 2022, that was my grind phase. Like I genuinely don't really have much recollection of just day-to-day stuff back then, because I was literally, especially 2021 and 2022, I was working like 100 hours a week. I was cleaning from 3 a.m. until 7 p.m. most days. So I would wake up in the morning. Actually, I just want to like recap a few milestones from like 2020 to 2022. So I got my first commercial client. It was this mechanic. It was this like automotive workshop, $137 a week. And it would take me like just over an hour. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, I'm making $100 an hour technically, but it's only an hour a week. But I was like, this is awesome. This is great. That was my first commercial client. And so because I got my first commercial client, I had to change my business name from Enhanced Home Cleaning to Enhanced Cleaning Services. And then not long after that, I'd grown a bit more and I had to hire my first employee. And then I had my first bad experience. I had a gym that I was cleaning for that just canceled our contract with no notice, and I had to fire an employee because it was like 75% of all the work she did. I won my first big contract. So this company called Coogee Chemicals, they make like chlorine and all this stuff. They make a bunch of different chemicals and they formulate this stuff. They did a massive construction. They built a whole new chemical plant, and I won the contract to clean that for 2 years. So that was my first massive contract I won. That was a six-figure contract, and I won my first huge win, which was winning the St. John Hospital contract, which we still have to this day. I won that in 2021 as a 20-year-old that had no idea about what the hell he was doing. I don't know. I walked into the room and it was like the CEO, the CEO's assistant, the hotel services manager. They were all just looking at me like, hey, what can you do for us? And thank God I won that contract because it's been a great contract for us. I still have no idea how I did it. I don't know how I pulled that off. But yeah, I won the St. John Hospital contract. They've been amazing. They've been a really valued client. We love doing business with them. And yeah, like that really shaped who I am today. Like that whole experience, all the setbacks and all that stuff. I can't really tell you exactly what happened in those years because I was just working so hard. And I don't really remember. I remember like little things here and there. Like I had a really bad day once. I talked about that in a TikTok where I did a vacate clean for 22 hours straight. I started at 4 a.m. on a Saturday and finished at 2 a.m. on Sunday the next day. And the client was unhappy, called me back the next day on Monday to fix it. And I went straight back in there. She was screaming in my face, like spit was flying into my face. She shoved me and like was laying hands on me. That was my first like really negative experience. And that was after I just cleaned a house for 22 hours straight. And like, it wasn't that bad what I'd missed. And I went straight back there to fix it. And so I don't get why she was I'm not going to say that word, such a not nice person. But yeah. I also remember like occasionally I would be having like a 15-hour work day with like no breaks. I couldn't even eat lunch. And there was one day I remember so I used to wake up at 3 a.m. to clean a gym. So I'd clean a gym from 3:30 to 6:30. And then I'd go from the gym to a medical center from about 7 until 8:30. And then I would clean 3 houses for the day. And then I would do an office at night. So I would do about 6 or 7 cleans a day. I would be working 15-hour days. And I remember this one day in particular where I felt so exhausted, just so physically and mentally exhausted because I hadn't been sleeping. I would like get home and like do a bit of admin, do some marketing, do whatever I needed to do after cleaning for 15 hours. I would barely sleep and then I'd wake up at 3 a.m. the next day to do it all over again. And it was starting to catch up to me. And I remember exactly what house I was at. It was this client called Terrell. I used to clean a house for 2 hours for $70, so $35 an hour. And I remember just sitting on a stool in her baby's nursery. Like no one was home. I was the only person there cleaning it. And I started to just break down in tears. Like I honestly just started crying my eyes out. And I was like, I'm exhausted and I'm not sure where I go from here. I don't know what to do. I genuinely am stumped. Like I've kind of worked myself into a corner where I'm just working relentless hours. I'm barely seeing my family. Like my grandparents, I was living with them at the time. They used to cook dinner for me every night and they would have to just keep my dinner in the fridge for me. And I would eat it at like 9 p.m. when I got home from cleaning for the day. And yeah, I just felt so exhausted one day and I didn't really know what to do next. I didn't know how to get to the next level. I didn't know how to break past that like 75 to 100K barrier. And I just felt so exhausted. I just broke down in tears that day. And yeah, but it was like one of those moments where you think about how much work you've already done and how much you've still got to go. Like you're only halfway up the mountain that you got to climb. So I was like 9 hours into a 15-hour workday, and I was like, man, this sucks. So yeah, I had a few moments like that. That was like the most memorable one. I had this other one where like I was cleaning that gym one day from 3:30 in the morning until 6:30, and like I used to pour bleach in the men's urinals. And also just to like preface this, I used to put like a sign up on the bathroom doors that basically said cleaning in progress, please don't come in for like the next 10 to 15 minutes. And I would put them up and then I'd go in there once the last person had left. And then anyone that wanted to enter, they'd see that sign and they wouldn't enter. And so I used to put like bleach in the urinals to clean them, and I would like go clean the showers at the same time. I had to like multitask a lot because 3 hours for this gym was not enough time. It was like a big world gym. It was World Gym Bunbury. Not enough time for that whole place. And I was not getting paid well for that. I was getting paid $50 an hour to wake up at 3 a.m. for 3 hours. Not great. But so there was this one time a guy came in, ignored the sign on the door, and he used the urinal, and there was bleach in it at the time. and it like splashed up onto his pants, I guess. And he stormed into the shower area where I was cleaning, and he just starts yelling at me. He's like, "Are you using bleach? Do you use bleach in here?" And I was like, yeah, in the urinals, yeah, I use bleach. And then he pulls part of his pant up to show it to me, and he's like, "Look what you've done. Look what you've done to my pants. You got bleach all over my pants." And he's like swearing his head off and yelling at me. And like I said, I'm like I've got social anxiety. I'm very timid at this point, and I just like froze, and I was so scared. I didn't know if he was gonna like hit me or something. And he eventually, like after he'd yelled a bit at me, he just like huffed and puffed and then walked out. And like that was another moment where I just like went into one of the showers there and just cried again. And I was like, I hate this. Like I had so many thoughts, so many times of just like wanting to give up. That was definitely one of those moments where I was like, it really set in on me that this really was a thankless job. Like, you know, cleaning a gym. I don't know. I've done so many different places, so many different types of cleans. Cleaning a gym is the worst kind of clean you can do. The people in there are so nasty. It's so gross. And the gyms are so stingy. They don't want to pay enough to get a proper service, but they also expect the world. They have the highest expectations and the lowest budget. And it was so demoralizing that day. It was just like I'd been cleaning for like an hour and a half at that point. I had, you know, probably slept 4 hours that night, woke up at 3 to clean this place. And I had some guy screaming in my face because there was a little speck of bleach on a pair of his shorts. Like, really, dude? Like, really? Come on. Your $20 shorts have a bleach stain on them. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to go and scream in a stranger's face. And yeah, that was another one of those times. There was so many times, like, and then, you know, it got to the point where I was just kind of exhausted. Like that time where I'd done that 22-hour clean, and then I got called back the next day and had that woman screaming in my face and shoving me and all this stuff. I didn't even react. I was just like pretty numb by that point. Like I was so unfazed by everything. And that's kind of a testament to how this business has shaped me into who I am today. I no longer have social anxiety. I no longer shy away from people. I'm not timid anymore. I can stand up for myself. I can speak up for myself. And it's like, I guess these little traumatic experiences over time kind of helped with that. Like, and yeah, when I did that 22-hour clean and I had that woman screaming in my face and shoving me and stuff, I had staff at that point. I think this was like late 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Was it? I don't know. My memory's a bit foggy, but I brought Stacey along with me because I was like, Stace, this is going to be bad. Like the way she was speaking to me on the phone, I know this is going to be not a pretty scene. So Stacey came with me, and Stacey witnessed the whole thing. Like this woman was just screaming in my face and shoving me and all this stuff right in front of Stacey. And yeah, like Stacey has bared witness to a lot of crazy things that have happened in the earlier stages of my business. She was my first employee ever. And yeah, if you know the story, she now runs my main location in Bunbury, and she's the operations manager. So she's come a long way. And yeah, like I had to endure a lot of stuff. I had to go through a lot of hardship to get to where I am now. And Stacey as well, she had to put up with some stuff as well to get to where she is now in the business. And yeah, but man, it really shaped me into who I am today. It taught me a lot of valuable lessons. It taught me a lot about people. It taught me a lot about sales and marketing and how to interact and how to deliver a service and what customer service is like and how you should word things and how you should carry yourself and all this stuff. And all those, yeah, it really just shaped me into who I am today. And, you know, even all those times where I would just be like by myself, like alone in a house, just like crying about wanting to give up and feeling like it's not worth it anymore and just not knowing what to do, because it's not like I'd gone to school and I had this career path laid out in front of me. Like I was paving my own path. I had no idea what came next. And it was kind of scary. It was kind of daunting. And I had those thoughts of giving up, but I also knew that giving up was never an option. I was going to make this work no matter what. And so yeah, I grew as a person and as a business owner, and slowly but surely the days got shorter. I wasn't working 15 hours a day anymore. And I felt like I was gaining more clarity. Like I'd already dealt with so many curveballs that had been thrown my way in the business. And I felt like I'd earned my right to be where I was. And I had just started to delegate, so I'd hired staff. I'd finally had a team around me that I was building, and once I had hired, I think the first big like shift for me in my identity and my business journey was having my first 2 employees that were just working without me. And then I would look at the money I made that week, and half of it, sorry, I just hit my microphone. And then half the money I made for that week was like work that I didn't even do, that I just made basically passively. And I also had this big nose surgery. So I had a septorhinoplasty back in 2022, I think, like January 2022. And I couldn't work for like 3-4 weeks. And my three or four employees at the time, they held down the fort. And yeah, I made money from my bed while I was recovering from that. And that was when I was like, wow, I've built a legit business. I have built a real service business, and it felt great. And yeah, that was like a lot of lessons that were learned. I really had to earn my place in the business. I really had to earn the success I have now. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It wasn't easy. It certainly wasn't easy. People don't understand. Even my employees, like, they don't understand what I had to go through in the first 2 years. The first 2 years, I was genuinely working 15 hours a day, 6 days a week, all year round. I did not take breaks. I did not go on holiday. That was the least of my worries at that point. I didn't go out with friends. I didn't have friends, but even if I did, I wouldn't have time to go out with them. And my only escape was like watching movies and like playing video games sometimes, if I ever found time. That was my only escape from my reality of just cleaning nonstop. But I also really enjoyed it. I really loved cleaning all that time. Some days it got a bit too much. Like I said, I would just kind of break down and be like, I'm exhausted. But I really did love it. I really loved what I was doing. I loved the feeling of progress that I had. Like even just, taking one house from dirty to clean, moving on to the next space, taking it from dirty to clean, and also seeing the numbers grow in the business. I loved that sense of progress and that feedback loop that came from having a business. But I really had to go through a lot to get to where I am now. Lots of hard stuff, lots of mistakes, lots of big mistakes that, I won't get into now. But there was this one thing where, and I'll just say this, I used to clean this B&B, and for some reason the owners of B&Bs are just not nice people. I don't know what it is about gyms and B&Bs, but this B&B, I used to hate doing it, but I needed the money. It was pretty good money. And it was like summer, so it was getting cleaned pretty regularly. And I remember just being at home on a Saturday night, just like watching a YouTube video, and I was about to go to dinner with my family, because we used to have like this weekly thing where we would all go to dinner together. And yeah, that was kind of like a way we stayed tight knit during that whole, bankruptcy thing, and the family being kind of ripped apart by this financial disaster of the business. It was also a way that we could stay together and just see each other at least once a week. And yeah, my dad would try to make an effort to be there as much as he could. But anyway, I was about to go to dinner with my family, and then I got a call from the B&B guy, and I immediately knew something was up. Like I was like, oh shit, I've missed something, haven't I? Like something bad's happened. And so I didn't pick up. I was so scared. Like, again, social anxiety. I was so scared to pick up that phone. And then immediately after the phone rang out, I got like these texts, like one after the other, just ding, ding, ding. And it was like, people are there now. The place is not clean. They're freaking out. You need to fix this. And I was like, oh no. So that was one of my first big mistakes. I had to compensate. I had to pay for these people to stay in a hotel. And I had to like compensate the B&B owner. I was too embarrassed to go face those people myself. So I sent in my employee at the time. I was like, just go in there. I'm going to pay you like $400 to do this. Please just go in there. I just can't bear to face them. I can't do it. I don't have the courage and the gut to do it. So she did that. I lost a lot of money that day, but at least I still made it to dinner with my family. But it was not the most enjoyable dinner. And I used to just bottle all of this up inside. So I didn't even tell them what had happened that night. I just stayed quiet. And yeah, that was something. So I made a lot of mistakes. But you have to make a lot of mistakes, because mistakes or failure. So I think failure is a good indicator of success, because you have to fail in order to succeed. And so the more you can fail, the more likely and the closer you are to succeeding, basically. So I never looked at failure as just failure. I just looked at it as a learning experience. And so like that day with the B&B, like I really tightened up my scheduling with that. I created like a whole separate calendar just for the B&B, and I would cross-reference it every week with what was in my ZenMaid at the time. And yeah, that was that. I really like it broke me in a lot of ways. The first 2 or 3 years of my business, it definitely broke me and it tested me in a lot of different ways, but it shaped me into the person I am today. And the person I am today, I am very proud of. And I think if I could go back 5 years ago or 6 years ago to like when I started this journey and tell myself then what I was going to achieve and show myself all the things that I was going to do, I would not have believed it. I would have been in shock. I still can't believe that. Like when I really think about it, I can't believe I've come as far as I have, considering where I came from. Like people have probably had it worse than me, but like just me personally, I can't believe the progress I've made. Just not only from a business standpoint, but also just personally. Like I've got friends now. I can talk to people. I can have hard conversations. I can be put in uncomfortable positions and do well and not want to give up and solve problems, you know? So yeah, like I've come a long way. It's when I put it into perspective, this is the first time that I've really like talked about it and reflected on it. But what a journey it's been, man. Like, wow, I'm really grateful for everything that's happened. And if you're still listening to this, I'm grateful for you too. I'm grateful for your attention right now. And yeah, but the first 2 years, very, very tough. Like I said, 15 hours a day, 6 days a week, all year, no breaks. The only break I would have was like Christmas Day. That was it, really. Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve I worked. I remember I was cleaning that B&B I just talked about on Christmas Eve one night, and my family came to visit me. They were my parents and my sisters came to visit me while I was at that B&B. It was like pretty late at night because they had people coming in the next day, and I didn't want to work on Christmas, so I just did it at night. And yeah, my family came and visited me, and we just had a drink together, and that was fun. But yeah, it's and then on the 7th day every week, I would like go to church and then also catch up on admin and do marketing to try and grow the business, because otherwise I wouldn't have time. But yeah, I cleaned so much, and I reckon that's also how I became Australia's fastest cleaner. I mean, I had to fit 7 cleans into a day by myself, and also like figure out staff and stuff, because even when I had 3 or 4 staff, I was still working 15 hours a day because the business just kept growing, and I couldn't like balance the scales evenly. I couldn't balance the workload with the recruitment drive. I couldn't get that right for a long time. But yeah, I made it out. The first 2.5 years, 3 years were really rough, but by 2023, I had finally grown the business to $1 million in revenue, and I had essentially removed myself from the business. I had put Stacey, I worked her up from a cleaner to a cleaner/trainer. So like 2 or 3 days a week, she would train people. And then she just was full-time with training. And then I slowly, gradually introduced her into management and admin. And then eventually in October 2023, I just threw her in the deep end, and I was like, I'm going away for a couple of weeks. I want you to run the business. I've given her all this training up until that point. There's probably still things that you're not going to be completely confident with, but just try your best, and nothing's going to go catastrophically wrong. And when I come back, any cracks that we see, we can patch them up and we can deal with them accordingly. And so I got back, and to my surprise, she'd actually grown the business quite considerably. Funny story. So because I have this weird thing where I don't like answering the phone if it's a number I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like I can talk to someone face to face, a stranger, but picking up calls from a random number, I used to not be good at that. I used to just avoid the phone at all costs. But when I put Stacey into her role, she started answering the phone. And then she added like $200,000 a year to the business in that month I was away, just because she was answering the phone. And then when we got back, we talked about it. I was like, wow, I must have been leaving so much friggin' money on the table because I just was too scared to answer the phone. And she was like, oh yeah, you were. Like there was one client she got that had been calling through like every day for a couple, or not every day, but like they called through a couple of times over a period of weeks. And when they got through, they were kind of annoyed. They were like, why has it been so hard to get in contact with you? But Stacey, she's so good with people. She like calmed them down. And then we got a contract out of that, and it was a big one. And yeah, I was like, just one of the things I struggled to overcome, just answering the phone. Like, how crazy is that? Like, but despite that, I still grew the business to $1 million. But yeah, after that, once I put Stacey in that role and I had someone that was actually answering the phone, answering all the calls that was marketing in order to get, the business really took off. And yeah, I crossed over $1 million in revenue. I think that's the year I started making TikTok content. So the first ever TikTok I made, I was already at $1 million a year in revenue at that point. And that was the kind of time where things were getting a little bit stale. Like I wasn't doing as much cleaning as I used to, and I was getting a bit bored, and I was like, how can I make this more enjoyable for myself? And so I was like, maybe I can just start making videos, because I saw another cleaning business owner on TikTok, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I could also do this, because I own a pretty big business now. So I started documenting my journey. I just started making videos about whatever I could. And I blew up pretty quickly. Like, one of my first videos was my Bunnings my Bunnings shopping video, and that got like 5.5 million views. I got 25,000 followers from that one video. And so yeah, my growth has been pretty slow since then, if you consider that I got 25,000 followers from one video, and then it's taken me 2 years to get to 80,000 followers. Yeah, I blew up pretty quick. And not long after that, I started my podcast. So I started this podcast, I think in July 2023, and as of recording this, it's almost July 2025, so we're approaching 2 years. I've stayed somewhat consistent. Like, the first year of this podcast, it was a bit hit and miss, because I was also still working a lot, and I just didn't really stay true to my word to do a weekly thing. So we should technically be over 100 episodes by now, but you know, I was not disciplined with it, but I'm now very consistent with it. So yeah, anyway, started my podcast. I was really enjoying things. I really enjoyed how the business was going, the growth, the autonomy I had with my time and money freedom. It was great. It was really good. And yeah, like I was never having, nothing was ever too bad. Like, we would have some bad days in the business, but I was like, compared to what I had to endure in the first 2 years, this is nothing. And I think that was one of the other problems as well, where Stacey would have a bad day and it would break her. Like, something bad would happen and she would be in tears, and like, but then she would tell me about it, and I'd be like, oh, that's not bad at all. That's that's nothing. Like, we'll be fine. And then I would kind of calm her down, and I'd be like, look, put it in perspective. Like, I've had days 10 times worse than this, and we were fine. We're still here now, and the business has only continued to grow, so we'll be fine. We can get through anything. And Stacey's always said that I was like always a very like solid leader. Like, she said that in my podcast with her. She said that I'm very level. Like, I don't really get stressed or fazed by anything. And yeah, we've been a good team in that sense. So the business, it doubled every year since its inception. We went from 100K to 250K to 500K to $1 million, now to 2 million. And yeah, I did the social media stuff was great. I did that pretty consistently. And then, so that was 2023. I started all that. And then 2024, which was last year, was, you know, my most transformational and I guess monumental year in my journey so far. That was when, you know, I got flown out to Sydney to go into the Viva House of Spills. I won that, became Australia's fastest cleaner, went on TV and radio like it was nothing for a couple of weeks. I was a mini celebrity for those couple of weeks. The business continued to grow and grow. We won some more big contracts. I'd grown my team to like 20 at this point, and things were looking really good. I had a lot of confidence in myself. I was a completely new person, and I was on top of the world. So this was 2024. And then I, just as quick as I had reached my highest high, I went to my lowest low. So as some of you know, I bought a brand new Audi RS3 back in February 2024. And in April 2024, I was a bit stupid and drove it really, really fast, 240 Ks an hour to be exact. And I hit gravel going at that speed. It was pitch black, midnight, and there were no road signs saying that the road was turning to gravel because this was out in the country. And so I hit the gravel going that speed, slid for a few hundred meters, flipped a few times, and then hit a tree. And I, thank God, didn't die. I don't know how I didn't die, but I woke up in the ambulance and I got taken to Royal Perth Trauma, the trauma ward at Royal Perth. And yeah, overnight my life had kind of changed for the worse. I did a dumb thing and I had to pay the consequence for it. But yeah, thank God I didn't die. Thank God I didn't become a paraplegic or something. But I remember laying in that hospital bed. I was in there for a while. I was in like day 2 of being in hospital. I was like, what have I done? Like, what if I did die? What if I did die? What would have happened to my business? What would have happened to all the people I employ? What would have happened to my family? How would they have felt about that? And then after that, when the dust settled from that, quite literally, my insurance claim got denied because they found out that I'd been going the speed I was going. When I hit the tree, I was going. So at impact with the tree, because they record this in the black box of the car, the speed when the car hit the tree was 120 k's an hour, and it was also like upside down because I was flipping while this was happening. So yeah, I hit the tree at 120 k's an hour after sliding and flipping, going like 180 to 200, and I fractured a lot of bones. I had a hole in my head. I would post a photo on Instagram, but it's a bit gross. But yeah, I had a hole in my head. They had to get stapled shut. You could pretty much see my brain through it. It was pretty gnarly, and had a lot of broken bones. Had a broken nose, broken pelvis, broken elbow, broken knee, so much stuff. Nothing really bad. Like, I recovered pretty well. It was my 23rd birthday the next week, so that was an interesting birthday party. But yeah, the insurance, they saw the black box in the car, they saw the speed I was going, and because of that, I didn't get paid out in my insurance, and I had lost essentially $130,000 because that was how much the car cost, and I had it for 8 weeks. So that was a really big setback. That was my lowest low, not only from a financial standpoint, I just lost $130,000, but also the embarrassment I felt from doing such a stupid thing and landing myself in that position because I had nobody else to blame. And like, I take full responsibility and accountability for that. That was really dumb. I would never, ever do something like that again. Like I said, I was out in the middle of nowhere. I was just going for a joyride, basically. And I mean, there were some other things involved, like not drugs or alcohol or anything, but I wasn't having a good day or a good week at this point. And I was just like, I'm just going to blow off some steam. And yeah, that's an understatement. But anyway, not a great time for me. But again, I always just had that mental fortitude of like, I will not give up no matter what. I will come back stronger from this. I will come back stronger for myself, for my team, and for my family. And as quickly as that happened, as quickly as I fell into that pit of losing a lot of money, and also because I'd taken myself out of the business in Bunbury and I was about to start expanding Perth, my income in Perth went to zero because I could no longer clean and do anything there. And business in Bunbury was also like at a low profitability because I had just put management in place. And so I was like kind of scared. I was like not sure if I was really going to make things work. I was so scared. Like if I lost one contract, I would have been in a really bad place because I was also living out of home at this point, renting an apartment in Perth, which is the one I'm still currently in. And like it was getting scary. But not long after that, I really turned things around. Like I had like this new awakening of just motivation and drive to, that's probably a bad choice of words. I had a new drive. I had this newfound drive and determination to really succeed. It was like a second awakening in my business. Like I'd kind of lost that hunger once I'd gone to $1 million. But then just like that, I got it back again after that accident and, almost dying and almost really screwing things up. I just had this second awakening, and it was like I just had this breath of fresh air, and I just stuck my head back down and I grinded like there was no tomorrow. And yeah, I built the Perth business up to 6 figures in a short amount of time, and the Bunbury business was also growing at the same time exponentially. And I as quickly as I went into my lowest point, as quickly as I fell into that deep pit, I got myself out of it and ascended to new heights. And I think I attribute that to my mindset and my mentality throughout that whole experience. Just not wanting to give up, not having regrets about it, not wallowing in my own self-pity, like, oh, why did I do that? Why didn't I do something differently? All this stuff. I was like, what's done is done. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to come back bigger and better and just be a better man and a better business owner and a better person in general. So that was like, yeah, that was just over a year ago. That was, it shaped me. It definitely knocked some sense into me that day. I don't know if that was the brain injury or just me getting a bit more mature that day. But again, like that was one of those times where I just kind of became a different person. I matured more. My mindset changed that day. I hadn't been going to church for a while. After that, you can best believe I started going back to church again. I became a much more disciplined man. I had this new kind of breath of fresh air back into my life, my business, where I just wanted to work and do the right thing and get back on track. And so, yeah, that was overall, it was on paper a really, really bad experience, but I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for that accident and what happened and what followed. And I think it was a very important part of my journey. And like I said, thank God that I don't have any bad lasting injuries or that I just didn't die. That's the main thing. And so, yeah, now we're here. The business is bigger than I ever could have imagined. We've won awards. I was on TV again recently. I was being interviewed on a morning talk show, which was just amazing. My social medias are growing. This podcast is growing. We now get 1,000 listeners an episode. It's just insane. I couldn't have ever predicted this when I started. And something funny happened yesterday. I was about to go out. I had a friend over. We were just chatting and shooting the shit before we headed out. And I just picked up this old notebook I had and I opened it up and I had this thing where it was like 2022 recap, 2023 recap, 2024 recap. And I also had goals for each year. And my goals for last year, I'd written 2 pages of goals and I completely forgot about them. And it was interesting. I went back and I looked at all those goals. I had ticked off every single goal I had made for myself the previous year. I ticked every single goal off without realizing it. And the only goal I did not realize, the only thing that I did not achieve was one of the goals was 100 podcast episodes. I fell short of that, but that was it. But everything else, it was like probably 40 goals, and I had achieved 38 or 39 of them without actually realizing it. I was like, wow, that really is a good testament to, like, if you don't set goals, you can't achieve them. If you don't have a goal, you'll never achieve it. You have to speak it into existence. You have to actualize it for it to actually be a tangible thing that you can then reverse engineer and work your way towards. Even if it's just like a subconscious goal that you have, or everything is subconscious, but just getting it out there, getting it out onto paper, or just telling yourself that you're going to get to a certain point. Really important exercise, just to write down goals. And it doesn't take long, I'm sure you have a spare 10 minutes once a year to write down your goals. But yeah, that was interesting. And that's pretty much my journey up until this point. So I don't know. That's at least that's what I could remember. So yeah, just to recap, it was, well, actually, there's a lot to recap. That was the recap. That hour and a half was the recap of my life. So, but yeah, it was a very, very tough journey for me. I don't know. Other people have definitely had it tougher than me, but for me, in my experience, it was a very hard journey, but it was very rewarding. It was very gratifying. I grew a lot as a person and as a business owner, and I'm grateful for everything that's happened along the way. I'm grateful for not only every success, but every failure, every little hurdle, every little pitfall, every little mistake that I've had along the way, every customer that I hate, that is a terrible person, that has been so mean to me. So grateful for you. Thank you so much for being part of my journey and helping me become the person I am today and the business owner I am today. And yeah, like the rest, as they say, is history. I've now won awards. I've built 2 great locations of the business. I have a team of 50. I've been on every TV channel in Australia. I've been on every radio station. I've had newspapers written about me. I've been on the front page of the paper. All this stuff, right? I'm currently I'm in the final round of the Telstra Business Awards, which is the really prestigious business awards in Australia, if you're not familiar. So yeah, amazing journey. It was tough, very, very hard. And there were days where I wanted to give up and I would just break down in tears and not know what to do next and not know what was going to happen. But I knew that failure was never an option for me. I knew that giving up was not ever going to be in the cards. And so I just kept pushing. I kept trying to innovate. I kept trying to learn from my mistakes and just do something better, test something, get feedback, readjust it, and then take a new approach and see what happened. And then that kind of mentality and that way of doing things has led me to where I am now. And that is basically my story. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was a pretty long one. So if you stuck around for this whole thing, I really appreciate you listening. And when I say that I appreciate you listening, like I really do mean it. I don't need to be making this podcast. I don't make any money from this. I don't have a ton of listeners. Like I've got a nice small audience on here, but I really like to get things out of my head. And I really hope that my story resonates with at least one person out there and that it can inspire and motivate and maybe incentivize someone to do something that is going to change their life in the way that it's in a similar way that it's done to mine. If I can just have this message resonate with one person that's maybe been in a similar spot, or maybe you have a son or a daughter that's maybe not doing well in school and you just want what's best for them, and maybe this has given you an idea to bring them along with you into your business journey. Like there's so many parallels and so many different perspectives and opportunities that can be derived from someone's personal story and someone's personal experience. So I hope this has resonated with you. I hope this has, even if it hasn't, I hope this has just maybe brought you closer to me in a way, without sounding too sentimental. I do want to build a closer relationship with my audience, and I think you understanding my story is a big part of that, because no one's really known it up until now. But I was a very vulnerable person. I was very, very sheltered from the world, and I had a very rude awakening when I started the business. But I'm proud of how I dealt with things. I'm proud of where I came from and how I got here, and I'm super grateful for all of you. And I'm just a kid that never stopped believing and just wanted to make it work and wanted to, do well. That's really all it boiled down to. I just wanted to do well for myself. I try to be quite humble and quite modest in my approach to life and business, and I'm very grateful for all the opportunity and all the success I've had. And I can't even take credit for all of it. I've had a great team around me. I've had great parents. I had a great upbringing, besides school and all that other stuff. But it's been a journey. Everyone's got their journey. That was mine. And I really appreciate you listening if you did stick around this whole time. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening. And if you have any questions about any part of my journey, feel free to reach out to me on socials and ask. And if you like this episode, I would really appreciate if you could leave a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and maybe even leave a message about it. Say like, oh, this podcast has been great. It's helped me with blah, blah, blah. It's helped me hire my first employee, or whatever it may be. Or even just send me a message on Instagram and tell me you like the episode, because that'll make me feel good. So with that being said, that is my story, more or less. There's probably a lot of things I left out, but it's hard to unpack your whole life into a short podcast episode and not leave things out. So I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It's been a long time coming, I think. I've wanted to kind of talk about my story in a way that will resonate with people and hopefully not just sound like a jumbled mess. But I think I've done that today. So I will see you again in the next episode of Self-Made, and we'll go back to the regular scheduled programming, and we'll talk about another business problem or some other tactic or strategy that we can tackle, and I'll see you then. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.